The IRS has a completely free website.
This is random, and I don't know why there's this connection in my brain between local libraries and tax information.
Yep. You can print out, they'll give you copies of all the hard copies of your stuff, and you can print out all your tax documents and things that you need at the library. They can help you with some questions, and they always have like the tax books and stuff. So
yeah, like direct you to other resources, right? Interesting.
The library is a plethora of.
Yeah, I'm glad that there are so many resources because we all have to file our taxes, and like knowledge levels could be totally different. So I'm so glad that there are so many resources and points of contact for that help.
If you haven't figured it out yet, today we're talking about taxes and tax time and tax season. And
I didn't know we were actually recording.
Income taxes specifically.
Income taxes. Who's got their taxes done so far this year? James, I'm looking at
Probably
you.
James.
No.
Oh.
Because last year I got a stray form showed up in the mail after I had already sort of completed the process. Luckily, it wasn't anything that impacted anything. I did not have to edit anything or amend my tax return. But it was a scary moment. Like, did I forget something?
That happened to me like 3 years ago, and I did have to amend mine.
I've had to, too.
It's such a process.
I know. One time I claimed myself and my parents claimed me. Clearly not great communication in our family. So I made my parent amend their taxes because I said, I'm a working adult.
There you go. If nothing else, if you're having an experience where you're not sure that you have something in common with someone else, just start talking about taxes. It's as safe as the weather. You can be like, wow, this is not a good, like, this is hard. Like,
yeah. Unites us all.
Yeah.
It really does. I will say the one thing I learned in college, taking income tax accounting, is the IRS just wants you to communicate with them. So if you get that letter, read it, write them back. Like, they are truly not as scary as you think they are if you haven't done anything wrong. That is subject to your own discretion. But just write them back. Kind of like if you can't make a payment with us, call us. We'll talk to you.
I was actually looking at it, Rich, and that was one of the tips that they gave you was don't rush into doing your taxes. Take your time. Make sure that you have everything before you go full steam ahead.
Well, and then it can get, if you do make a mistake or don't have all the documents and you get into amending, a lot of times it doesn't cost more, but it can. And so then you're in this spot of having to pay more money, and then maybe you have to pay in. And, depending on your situation, that just might not work for your budget.
So where should someone start if they're like totally new to filing income tax returns?
That's good. I would say the IRS website is kind of your bread and butter. Like, go there. They have all the information. It's truly what their whole website is for. They have a lot of information on there. You can make an account with the IRS too to track all of your taxes and your filings and different things like that, even if you filed with a different service, because they're still the one that has to process that for you. And I think it's personally just really nice to have everything in there. But if you are, first time filing or first time filing due to a certain situation, I go to the IRS website, which is available 24 hours a day. They've got online tools like calculators. I know my favorite that we are encouraged to use at Royal is our W-4 withholdings calculator. So just making sure that you know throughout the year how much you should be paying in for taxes. That can help you eliminate a lot of those surprises once you do file, like having to owe in or getting a whole bunch of money back. That is a really good tool.
All right, can I ask a question quick?
Yes. What would you like to know?
Even if people what would you say to somebody who hears W-4 calculator and they're already getting nervous about, that already seems like over my knowledge base? I mean, should they just go in there and figure it out and kind of, is it best to just get in there and practice, do you guys think?
I think you could do a lot of things. The W-4 calculator, you have to enter a lot of information into it, but it really does a nice job of walking you through exactly what you need. So, and that's something I wouldn't necessarily say you have to use it when you're filing your taxes. It's more so, okay, we filed this year. let's use that to calculate and make any adjustments based on if we had to pay in or that kind of thing. But there are a plethora of services out there that you can go to, even for just questions. They're like the United Way has a service, the Aging and Disability Resource Office, local libraries. All of those are places that you can go, and they have resources or experts that can help you with your tax questions. So if you're truly not sure, stop in and say, okay, filing my taxes for the first time, I'm not quite sure, exactly what I'm doing, or I filed them in the past, but something changed this year, so I think it's going to be more complicated. Go just ask the question. So that I would say might be your first place to start, or hire an accountant, vet them out, do some research, talk to friends and family, see who they use, and, kind of find that trusted resource to build into part of your financial team.
So I think I'm the only one who has somebody help out with taxes. What would you guys say to get me to not do that? Or what do you think that, I like the fact that I can hire somebody to just make sure that it's done right and I'm not screwing anything up. But
I think you have a business too, right? So that's probably absolutely worth what it would cost to hire someone to do it. Why not?
I think that if it's peace of mind, it's always going to be worth it. I think we all have different comfort levels with filing our taxes. I took classes on it in college, and my professor said he would fail me if I ever paid someone to do it. Now, my taxes, they're pretty simple. If they ever become something, if I own a business or, inherit money or something like that, I'll definitely work with a professional. But I think, that peace of mind and just knowing you did it right is worth it enough to pay that fee if you can afford it. Truthfully.
Do you guys ever do your own taxes and then run it through a system to see if, without filing, to see if you made any mistakes or if you could have gotten a bigger return or anything like that?
I think a lot of those systems have those types of checks built within the system itself, just to safeguard against any potential errors that you might make if you're doing them on your own. It'll run it, checks and balances kind of, make sure if you mention that you have dependents, okay, did you enter any necessary information for them? If you mention that you worked more than one job, okay, do we have all our W-2s? I think that a lot of them do have those in place.
They do. They usually do a full check at the end too. I know I've used them and they've said, hey, let's just revisit this section. You might be able to, get a bigger refund. Let's make sure that you entered it right. A lot of them too, and while I don't know the cost of it, they have actual tax professionals that you can live chat with or send an email to, or even I think they do Zoom or video calls now. So for a smaller cost than you'd probably pay an actual tax person that you go into, that reassurance is there. And I think, I don't know, the IRS website one might even have it. So, or if you are filing with one certain system, I use the IRS because that's a pretty just general system. It's simple, it's free, but you could take that into the library and talk to, that tax professional if they had one in that day, or take it to United Way and, talk to them about that. With all of those, though, sometimes there are income limits. So that is something that you just want to keep tabs on too, and make sure that your income falls right within or under those limits.
Coming back around to what you need to do to get started. Is it really just wait to get your forms either electronically or in the mail? Make sure you have everything. Go through your list of forms that you expect to receive, like your interest, your mortgage, interest statement, your W-2s from your employers, things like that. Collect that stuff up.
I would say so. If you go to our new financial education platform, it's rcu.org/enrich. There is a really great article on there about all the documents you want to have on hand. And so a few of them that they list, number one, your W-2s, right? From all your employers. So make sure if you have a couple jobs, you have all of them. I know I've worked a bunch of jobs at one time, so I've forgotten, I'm probably going to get that one because it's a summer job or that type of thing. So make sure you have them all. And then if there's any, you might have side hustles or things like that, or self-employment, make sure you have any of those forms. You might also want to make sure that any of the interest forms that your financial provides you. So if you've made any interest income or on investments like capital gains, things like that. If you are itemizing deductions versus taking the standard deduction, getting kind of your receipts and all those ducks in a row. If you just bought a house, there are some tax breaks with that sometimes, so making sure you have those documents. So I would just go through kind of that comprehensive list and start to gather all of the pieces that you need. And I also don't think, if you're using an online tax service, you can go in there and start entering in your information. Make sure your address is current. If you moved, you'll have to update that and kind of go through that process so you can get all of that started beforehand.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Absolutely. And they're all going to depend, if you're a business or a small business and filing taxes, there's some different documents you'll need. If it's your first year in business, it might look different than many years down the road. So just making sure that you have all the things you think you need.
So once you have all your documents, or at least you think you have all your documents, you did a little research, you did some homework to say, all right, I think I have most of my stuff that I need. Then you're ready to choose your filing method. Like either I'm going to use an online tax service, I'm going to talk to a trusted tax advisor person and they're going to help me do it, or my accountant. I'm going to do it myself. I'm feeling brave. I took a class in college. Like you were saying, Cooper, I'm ready to sharpen my pencil and get to work on that. So there's a variety of different ways. Or I'm going to reach out to my local agency and see if there's any options for like a assistance program for filing taxes that way.
Yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely what you need to do. Some people are really confident with that e-filing method. Some people still like that good old pen and paper method, and both are totally acceptable. I know sometimes I've helped like grandparents with them, and we've done the paper method and then went to a service to make sure, we could actually e-file, but just kind of that peace of mind of writing everything down, knowing that you have it. And all the forms you need to actually file your taxes are available on the IRS website. So you can print them out and write them down or fill them in with e-file, that kind of thing. So yeah, you have to pick how you want to do it. And again, all methods are totally fine.
Is there ever a fee if one would choose to e-file versus like mailing it in?
Yeah, there can be a fee. And it's going to vary depending on the tax service. It also varies depending on how much help they provide, but there are ones that are completely free. I strongly encourage you, just because I've been in this situation where I've picked the 100% free and then clicked, yes, I'd love if you double check this, and then been charged $100. And so just keep in mind, if you have very simple taxes, you get a W-2, you're just telling the IRS how much money you made, probably not going to have a fee for most of those. But if you get into that, if you have investment income or that kind of thing, that's where you'll start to probably have a fee, which is kind of protection, right? So it just aids a little bit in the knowledge and the double checking that they do for you. But you can always start for free too. Like I said, the IRS free file, that one is free. Again, some of them have those income requirements. And so sometimes the income requirements can also spur a fee too, regardless of the simplicity of your taxes. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And they should have all of that on their website or on their service. It should be disclosed to you. If it's not, reach out or find one that does have all those disclosures out there for you. It's important for you as a consumer.
I think one thing that it's important for people to remember is that if they choose to use an online tax service, that those are businesses that are in the business of taxes and they're looking to make some money from you for their services, right? So you'll see different options, like, can we help you review things? Do you want to guarantee protection, insurance, assurance, ensure that things are going to be okay if you do get audited? Like, just be aware that that's probably an upsell. You probably don't need that. And then at the end, when you're entering your account information to get your refund direct deposited, you'll see all kinds of different options. Like, could we send you a prepaid gift card for this right now? And like, we'll take 10% of your tax return, but you can have it today instead of waiting for the IRS. Like, that type of thing is fairly common. So just be on the lookout for that stuff if you're in that situation.
That's a good one. I think a couple things, maybe we could talk about a few key terms that people might hear, just because we know what we need. We know how to choose what to file, but maybe what are some of those things that you're like, that is a big word and I cannot understand it. So I think the first one is talking about deductions. And I think people always get a little nervous there because there really are two options for you when you're filing your taxes. So there is the standard deduction, which is set by the government. It's a standard amount that you can subtract from your income. And then there's the itemized deductions. So typically you want to pick the one that is going to give you the most benefit, right? Like with most things. But so the itemized deductions, that one is where you need to make sure that you have your specific expenses and receipts and things for that. But it could be like your state and local taxes paid. It might be able to be a home mortgage interest paid. On their medical and dental expenses, depending on how your insurance plan is working. Charitable gifts, that's a really big one that I think people forget. Even if you donate things to like Goodwill or Savers, they usually will offer you like a tax form or a donation form. So if you do that a lot, you can, file that on your taxes. So again, whichever one is going to give you the biggest tax benefit is typically what you want to go with.
I don't know if you'd want to include this, but if you tie that at church, that also counts as a tax deduction.
Absolutely. So any of those, where you're giving, track that if you're, you give a lot throughout the year. That's a great one. And then there's also credits. So there's tax credits and things like that. And those ones, again, are subtracted from your total taxes due. Okay. And they are things like, the child care tax credit that we have right now. What's that actual name?
Is it just child tax credit?
Child tax credit. I think it is. Yeah. Yeah. So the child tax credit, that's a good one. There's some specific to like your county, to your state. There's, federal ones. So there's a lot of different credits on there too. So just kind of make sure you know about them. I think most tax services automatically kind of tie them into, let's make sure that you do this and that kind of thing, but just being aware of them. I'm pretty sure there's a list on the IRS website so you can go through and, calculate out like what you might actually qualify for. And then my favorite thing ever is adjusted gross income, or AGI. Okay, so this is the one also confuses people. So your adjusted gross income is your gross income, which is the total amount we earn before taxes, adjusted, right? So I know, right? So your gross income includes all sources of income for you, okay? So your salary, your wages, your tips, any interest, any dividends, any of that kind of stuff, Social Security, all of that. And it helps determine your eligibility for those different deductions and credits, right? And so you typically will take your adjusted gross income, you have all of that, then you subtract that standard itemized deductions, and that's what you get for the income that everything's based off of, right? So making sure you accurately report all of that is really, really important because it can make a big difference at times. So that's something to be sure of. And so then that number that you get afterwards, okay, so we have our adjusted gross income, total income, subtracted our deductions, and then that's what your taxable income is going to be. That's how I should have explained that. So that's going to be your taxable income, which is exciting. We already kind of talked about it. Total tax is what you owe in a year. That's where that W-4 calculator comes in. So making sure you know what you're actually going to pay, because that also determines too, when you look at the tax brackets, kind of where you fall within that too. So if you don't know, the tax brackets have different income levels, and if you fall between this amount and this amount, you paid this amount in taxes. And so the thing that confuses people about this that I always kind of like to go over is, so you aren't paying the highest tax bracket percentage on all of your income. Okay. So there's a bunch of different tax brackets. So if you make between $0 and $10,000, you would pay this amount. Okay. If now you make between $10,000 and $30,000, you would pay that amount. So you're only paying that higher tax percentage on the difference of income between the max of that previous bracket, right? So if we were making $10,000, now we make $30,000, subtract $10,000, $20,000 is what we're paying that higher percentage on. And so it keeps going like that. So it's a tiered system, and people get really nervous about that, or when the tax brackets shift. Sometimes it doesn't matter as much, just depending on how much money, you're making over whatever that max income amount was. So that's just, a little tip to be able to understand that more and not be so nervous about them. They usually change the tax brackets, I think, every year. They'll shift them a little bit. A lot of times it's in the benefit of, the population. Sometimes it's not, but having an understanding of that, I think, is helpful.
Where do you find the percentages of those tax brackets of how much you pay?
Yeah, the IRS website has them. If you truly just type in, 2024, 2023 tax brackets, it usually is one of the very first things that will come up on Google. I know that if you go through the article on Enrich, like I talked about, they have all of those linked out for you in that article. So they'll link right to where it is on the IRS website and so on. So everything is fully disclosed on there. When they update them, they usually have, this is 23, here's 24. That way you can compare. Most confusing? Not confusing.
You rolled out the dough and now you shaped it into the donut and now it's ready for us to throw into the deep fryer and eat.
Yeah. And then when you get your refund, I think that would be the frosting, sprinkles, any of that fun stuff, right?
What if there is no refund? What if you have to pay in?
Then you're going to have a plain donut. Is my theory.
All right.
I kind of like that. There's not a donut for taxes. It's the donut making process.
The donut making process.
There's some work involved.
Like always, if you like this episode, feel free to rate and review us. It really helps the show, so we really appreciate that. And
share it with all your friends and family.
Do you want to give a disclaimer at all for this episode?
I would love to give a disclaimer. The disclaimer is that this episode is simply for knowledge gains. It's not tax advice. And double check the IRS website, your personal documents, all of that, because these are always subject to change it. Really anytime.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for listening.